What's up with y'all, man? Scotty Knows back at it, talking basketball, talking hoops. You know the deal by now. I talk basketball on this channel. Hope you guys have enjoyed some of my content and a couple of my videos that I put out thus far. But without further ado, this is going to be my first playoff video. The NBA playoffs began since Saturday, I believe. So we've gotten a couple of game ones, we've gotten a couple of game twos by now. So we're pretty much in playoff territory. The winter sports have kind of ended, but of course the beautiful thing about winter ending is that spring has sprung, and usually when spring comes around, it's playoff time. It's peak basketball time. Unfortunately, there's no more college basketball, so that sucks. But again, we have NBA playoffs for the next 2 months to watch, to love, to enjoy, and then of course we have the WNBA coming back in I think the next month or so, or pretty soon, whatever it is, whenever that comes back. So there will still be plenty of basketball to discuss, plenty of basketball to enjoy, and plenty of sports to still enjoy, even though we're heading into the spring season. But anyways, let's talk about New York Knicks basketball going up against the Atlanta Hawks. Let's talk about Knicks Hawks series. Game 2 just wrapped up last night. Pretty intense game coming down to the wire, going to the fourth quarter. Obviously, well, first of all, let me state that I am a Knicks fan, so I am rooting for my Knicks actively right now. I'm hoping that we do make the NBA Finals. I'm not sure if we will win it all, but I'm just hoping that we could beat out pretty much every single team in the East, because the last couple of years, I feel like we've had legitimate chances at actually being not NBA champions, but legitimately getting to the conference finals, getting to the NBA Finals. Last year, I thought it was for sure going to be our year in terms of competing for a legit trophy, but unfortunately we got ransacked by the Indiana Pacers and Tyrese Halliburton. But this year's a new year. The East is depleted, so we have a higher chance technically to go on a legitimate finals run. Obviously, we haven't had a bad year by any means. We had a pretty darn good year. We are still a good team. We are still a contending team, but obviously we did not finish off how I think a lot of us Knicks fans hope to, in terms of like seeding wise. We are the third or fourth seed. I can't remember. Jeez. The Hawks are the sixth seed. Anyways, we did not finish. We did not finish how I think a lot of us Knicks fans hope to, in terms of being like a top 2 team in the East. But we're still a contending team. We still have plenty of talent on our squad right now. We are a deep team. We still have a lot to offer. In terms of like matchup wise, I think we can match up with a lot of teams, whether it's the Celtics, the Cavs, the Hawks, and whatnot, in the East. So that serves us well. But again, time and time again, the one problem that my Knicks have for the last couple of years is just like the consistency of maintaining a lead, and just like having the resiliency to not choke a lead going into the fourth quarter, or to finish out a game strong. And there's a couple of other things that we could get into that the Knicks don't do well, or that's kind of flawed with the Knicks team. But I think what's frustrating is that you see the talent that's on the roster. You see how good a Jalen Brunson is. You see what the Knicks went from like 4 or 5, damn near 6 years ago, when we started all of this with Mitchell Robinson and Julius Randle pretty much leading us to the playoffs, to now we have this team that's deep, that has 2 star caliber players, that has some great depth and wings and whatnot. You know the deal by now. We have a really good roster up to now compared to where we were years ago, even when we first started becoming more relevant in the NBA. But the frustrating thing about it is that we kind of did the dirty work, or the hard part, of actually finding the talent and actually acquiring all that talent, and attracting talent as well. What sucks is just like, what holds our team back is just like the resiliency factor. When you look at last year, we lost because of that resiliency factor. The Indiana Pacers were just a tougher team in that series. And then we look back last night to what happened last night, and it's just like this team continuously blows leads. They continuously kind of they don't really. I think just the ability, the sheer ability to rally in the fourth quarter and actually close a team out, and just not let a team continue to creep in like the Hawks did last night, it's just a little bit disappointing as a fan. And that's one of the things that scares me going into the rest of these playoffs. I still believe that we will beat the Atlanta Hawks. I think we are the better team. We're a deeper team. I think we're just more talented. I still don't think they have any answers for Karl Anthony Towns or Jalen Brunson. But then again, the Hawks did their job in these first two games, which was just grab a home win, or grab a win away from home. Just win one of the first two games, pretty much. If you could just tie it up 1-1 on the road, that's a phenomenal thing, especially for a team that does not have home court advantage. Because pretty much, what do? You pretty much just maintain home court advantage for yourself. You're pretty much going back to Atlanta 0-0, because it's tied 1-1 technically. So technically it's 0-0, and you can pretty much have a clean slate of getting back on top and trying to win 3 more games to win the series. Now, will that happen for the Atlanta Hawks? I wouldn't say so. Just because I don't think they will be able to keep up with our talent, and I think eventually the talent in the willpower of a Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, and just like our roster and just understanding the high stakes that we have as a team and knowing how good we are, I don't think we would allow ourselves to lose to a team like the Hawks. No disrespect whatsoever, but with the Hawks winning Game 2 on the road, it does open the door for a deeper series than I think many of us expected. Hopefully, it doesn't go 6 or 7 games. I don't think it will. I think it's going to be between that 5-6-ish range, I would say. It better not go 7 games, because I would probably have I don't want to see a 7-game series against the Atlanta Hawks in the first round, because if we could barely beat the Hawks, then I don't know how we're going to beat the Cavs. I don't know how we're going to beat a team like the Pistons. I don't know how we're going to beat a team like the Celtics. So definitely important for us to keep this series in 6 or less games. So I do have my Knicks still winning in 5 or 6 games, but it's going to be a bit more competitive than we thought. But let's talk about some of the things that we saw within the game, or throughout the game rather. So first of all, one of the things that hinders my Knicks in Game 2, or that did hinder them from winning yesterday's game, was just the lineup choice from Mike Brown. Mike Brown had a lineup of Jose Alvarado, Miles McBride, Landry Shamet, Mitchell Robinson, and whoever that 5th guy was, I can't remember. But it wasn't necessarily it wasn't really a lineup that has been played a lot throughout the season. And if I've seen the numbers correctly from what I've seen on social media and from what I've seen just doing some research about it, I don't think we ever played that lineup at all throughout the whole season. And he decides to put up a lineup on the floor in Game 2 of a playoff game in the first round that we haven't really had all season. And mind you, that lineup does not have any Jalen Brunson, and that lineup does not have Karl Anthony Towns either. So we don't really have a simple way of creation or half-court creation necessarily, or like a go-to guy to advantage create for our offense. It was kind of like Jose Alvarado running a pick and roll, and then sometimes we would need a Miles McBride or a Landry Shamet to bail us out on a shot, and just hope that Mitchell Robinson just goes to the offensive glass and just get a second chance point. So I think the lineup choice from Mike Brown in terms of not having Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns to begin some of these quarters, I think we began the second quarter without Karl Anthony Towns or Jalen Brunson, and we began the fourth quarter. It's pretty much the same thing. No Karl Anthony Towns, no Jalen Brunson. Every time we did that, Atlanta would creep back into the lead because they just took advantage of the Knicks' inability to really have legitimate offense. I wouldn't say this is an upside, but it's definitely something that's worth noting in terms of when you look at Karl Anthony Towns and when you look at Jalen Brunson, they are with no doubt our best 2 players and our best 2 offensive options, but they also happen to be our 2 worst defenders when it comes to being able to attack them and just like keep going at them and just try in terms of trying to create an advantage and trying to get to the rim and whatnot. That's something that I saw multiple times yesterday, which is one of the reasons why we did lose. Pretty much just CJ McCollum going right at Jalen Brunson. Very frustrating just because you know how good Jalen Brunson is. So obviously there's no way you're taking him off the court because he's just he's an offensive superstar. The Hawks continuously would just attack Jalen Brunson, just attack, and that would just turn into some type of points in some way, shape, or form for the Atlanta Hawks. So that was one of the reasons why we lost last night as well. So yes, having no Brunson and no Karl Anthony Towns on the floor, it kind of allows us to not have any weak points defensively in terms of like who you can target. But then again, it's just like, what does that really mean, and why does that really matter if you just can't even score? So you need Jalen Brunson or Karl Anthony Towns on the floor at all times. One of them has to be on the floor. I think the rotations and the minutes have to be shifted in some way, shape, or form for Meg Brown in order for us to not allow Atlanta to creep back into some of our larger leads, because we had like an 8, 10, 12 point lead throughout the whole game. And then, of course, like I said, the lack of resiliency in the New York Knicks, we kind of just have this bad habit of kind of just not really capitalizing on those high stakes moments that we really need in that fourth quarter. Like we always kind of we kind of just fizzle out. It's weird. It's kind of like a toughness thing, or like it's like resiliency and toughness. We just lack that in the closing games, especially in the playoffs. So that's kind of disappointing for my Knicks. We need to figure out. We have to figure out this thing to where it's like we got to close out some of these games. We can't keep having these like 10, 12 point leads throughout the whole game and then just like collapse once we get to the fourth quarter. You know what I mean? Like we saw that last year and we're seeing it this year. And unfortunately, we're still seeing those same habits and those same negative habits rather occurring year to year to year. You know, so this is like the second or third year I feel like that we're talking about the Knicks not having that grit in terms of we could be physical. You know, there's a difference between physicality and toughness. Physicality is just like the literal fact of being physical on the floor. Toughness is just also being mentally tough. Toughness is also just getting through a stretch where you're not shooting well and just controlling what you can control. Toughness is pretty much just you have a 10, 15 point lead. Can you maintain that and actually close out the game and not get lackluster and lazy? But yeah, like we have to give credit where credit's due to the Hawks for actually having that type of resiliency to stay in the game, to continue to creep into those leads that we had throughout the game, and to do it once again in the fourth quarter. CJ McCollum continues to be one of the most underrated players in the league, and probably the best, at least from my 10 years of watching the NBA over the last like decade. CJ McCollum, I think, is without a doubt the best all-star. I mean, the best non-all-star that I've ever seen play in the NBA. I don't think there's many players that have continuously averaged 20 points per game in the NBA from like year to year to year. Like over the last like 7-8 years of his career, he's averaged like 20 plus, at least 20 around that area on good efficiency. I looked at his playoff numbers as well. His playoff numbers kind of take a slight uptick, nothing crazy, but like he goes from like 20 points per game in the regular season to like 22 and a half in the playoffs. So his scoring takes an uptick in the playoffs. He's always averaging around 20 plus a game, which is kind of that all-star territory when it comes to scoring. He's one of the better ISO creators at the guard position in the NBA, especially for like especially for like a low maintenance type of guard. Not really like a lead star guard, but he could just really break you down, get to his spots in the mid range. He could get to the basket. He could shoot the three well. So, and he's always been pretty consistent throughout his career as well. With the Blazers, he was consistent. With the Pelicans, he was good for them as well. Obviously, he had his stint with the Wizards, which didn't really matter too much because the Wizards weren't really on anything. So they're not really a winning team at the time when he was on the Wizards. They still aren't necessarily. But anyways, CJ McCollum has always showed great consistency. He showed great efficiency. He's just a solid guard to have on your team. That's honestly like, when you think about it, he's kind of like an all-star caliber guard for the last pretty much his whole career. So he just continues to kind of be a little bit underrated when it comes to someone that can score for you, when it comes to someone that could do some of those ball handling duties and whatnot, and kind of just be like a solid leader on the floor as well. CJ McCollum is definitely for sure one of the more underrated players, I think, in the last decade or so of basketball. And it's just unfortunate that he's never been able to break into like an all-star game. But at the same time, that shows you the talent that the NBA has. The talent in the NBA right now is just deeper than ever, especially at the guard position. When you look at the 2026 NBA draft, there's like 6 or 7 guards that will come out of this draft that could turn out to be pretty darn good. So it's only going to get better in terms of like the guard talent that's coming into the NBA, I believe. So, but for someone like CJ McCollum, who has done it with great consistency and who has done it for so long, especially I think playing like at least 10 or so years in the league, right? I think he's 34, so yeah, 10 to 15, 10 to 14 years in the league. Um, and for someone that doesn't complain, for someone to be involved with the NBA Players Association as well, just doing more than just the typical basketball things. I think that deserves some praise. So shout out to CJ McCollum. And also, the Hawks didn't really have a great shooting night at all against my Knicks. I think my Knicks are not only the deeper team, but we're also just a better shooting team. So for CJ McCollum to do a lot of the tough shot making things that he did in last night's game to kind of combat that poor shooting night as a whole from the Atlanta Hawks, to help out a Jalen Johnson who really didn't have a field goal in that first half, I believe. CJ McCollum is that ideal type of guard for Jalen Johnson, because Jalen Johnson is a player that's kind of going to play within the flow of the game. He's going to play the game in terms of like, I'm just going to take what I give you, or he's going to take what you give him. So, yeah, I think CJ McCollum is that ideal type of guard that he needs, that aggressive guard that's going to have really no fear when it comes to scoring the ball, that's going to be aggressive trying to score the ball at the guard position especially. I think that's really important for a player like Jalen Johnson. But credit to Quinn Snyder, credit to CJ McCollum and the Atlanta Hawks for just figuring things out once it came to that second half in that fourth quarter and just kind of closing the game out against my Knicks. My Knicks, lastly, we just got to have some more resilience. We have to figure out a way to stop blowing these leads in the fourth quarter, especially in the playoffs, because we have enough talent. I think the team fits well enough. There's some holes on the team when it comes to defense and whatnot, in terms of, I think, agility, quickness, kind of just getting up and down the floor in a quick manner. But regardless, I think we have enough talent. The main problems is just the targeting that involves Karl-Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson, and the lack of resilience and toughness that we show in those late games. I think if we just show a little bit more resilience and toughness later in games to close them out, I think we would be up 2-0. So even with Jalen Brunson being targeted relentlessly, even with Karl-Anthony Towns just being slow-footed and just not being a great defensive big man, I think we could still win that game last night if we just would have actually done our job and just continued to close it out how we needed to. So it's just unfortunate that we were unable to win last night's game, but it's the playoffs and you gotta be ready for anything. But anyways, I still have my Knicks in. I'm gonna say Knicks in 6. I think Atlanta's gonna win a game at home, but I think once we get to games 5 and 6, I think my Knicks are gonna close it out and we're gonna win the series. But we better win the series. We gotta win this series. I don't think there's any if or buts or anything. We're gonna win the series in some way, shape, or form. I just hope it's not, gonna be too difficult. I just want to be able to win this first round series and just move on and see the Cavs or the Celtics in rounds 2 and 3, and then hopefully get on to NBA Finals. So, but again, it's the playoffs, so we'll see. Again, I'm Scotty Knows. I'm talking basketball on this channel. I'm talking hoops. As much as I can. I'll probably have another video out later this week, just talking more playoff basketball, talking about some other playoff series. There's a lot of entertainment going on, and a lot of basketball to watch as well. So I would do my best to pretty much break down some of these games, provide my takes, and create some more content for y'all. But again, I'm Scotty Knows. I'm talking basketball, and I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Peace.